If you don't have that time, those fallout will result in what we call in politics protest vote. You did not pick my candidate, then they protest. So, and that is how the opposition is likely to lose. That presidential chief agent here in Nairobi, in some of the areas I was, ODM had no agents because they don't have database. They have a manual system. So to reach their clientele, it was very difficult.
There's a lot of work to be done.
For opposition, united opposition, in fact, they have not started. They're still making noise. How I wish they sit down and understand that election is not a voting day event. Voting day is the last 3 steps of election. 95% of elections are won not on the voting day. They should not focus. DCP should stop focusing in Mrima and focus on Kenya. Kalonzo should not stop focusing on being united presidential candidate and focus on becoming the president of the Republic of Kenya.
But it will just be automatic.
In science, in political science, politics is divided into 3 things. Part 1 of politics, where the opposition is failing, is political scientific facts. The political scientific fact, simple, even if you dance on a podium the whole day, ukisema 2-term or 1-term, and you don't have the scientific facts in politics, 0, wataenda home.
Great to see you. Hello there and welcome to this particular platform, a platform that tells you the truth about what is happening on different sides of the aisle. We're going to talk about ideology. We're going to talk about politics as is. Kereto Murungi says people don't expect to lose. That's why they become very unhappy when they lose elections. Sometimes it's not just that you did not prepare well. It just happens that you didn't lose. You didn't win. Now, my conversation today is all about political parties' 2027 general elections preparations from the opposition to government. Who's doing better? Who is likely to win if elections are held today? Who should pull up their socks? The person I'm with is a communication expert. Yes, he's a elections strategist, a campaign strategist. He does a lot when it comes to campaigning time. And I've interviewed him before. Today, I'm going to speak to him about that. Chapia Chapia, great to see you. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. I'm doing very well, and I'm happy to be on your show again.
Once again, we are having to talk. You know, last time we were singing songs of slogans.
Yes.
But today we are talking about the preparations that is there.
Yes.
Of course, you are looking at what is happening politically.
Yes.
Let's start with this. The conversation that has been there about Azimio 2022 was all about the strategy they used, all about agents.
Yes.
Let's start from there. When you look at the 47,000 polling stations that are there in Kenya, polling centers, who would you say has a upper hand now when it comes to, you know, if elections are held today, they already know their agents, who will their agents be or whatever?
Thank you very much. What I want to share with the viewers today is that election is a process, and it is a very interesting process. The end process is what now we do. The voting day is the last 3 steps of election: voting, counting, and announcing of the result. But if you study the election cycle, 90% of election is won not on the election day. So if you consider now in terms of agents, you find out that what opposition or the united opposition are doing now, they are focusing on the remaining 10% on the election day. But if you consider Azimio, they have been with a lot of noise in the media, what happens to agent or what did not happen to agents. So like now in the 2027, the polling centers, if you check on the IBC website, there are over 47,000 polling centers. When I say polling centers, if you go maybe to a primary school, if it's a center, it can have several streams, which means any political party that want to win in next year coming election, they must start preparing their agents on those particular 47,000 polling centers. At the moment, it is the only UDA party that has laid down the ground strategies of 20 officials per polling center, over 47,000. So we are talking, they are talking of 20 multiplied by 47,000. They are talking of a huge number. So the UDA have started the process. You see them, they're advertising all over in the media. Last December, they did in Kakamega, there's Western regions. Again, they have advertised in coming 2 weeks in February, they will be doing another preparation. But if I look at our brothers in United Opposition, nothing at all is taking place. So when it comes to agents, as per today, UDA can be able to produce around 90% of agents in all of their polling stations. But if we look now to the United Oppositions, they have not even started preparing that. The fact remains, you like it or not, UDA has prepared more. And I've seen even ODM, they're also trying to prepare. But the rest of the United Opposition, they are doing nothing about agents, which means they will do it at the last minute. And without a proper plan for to have agents in 47 polling centers, you fail.
How important is it to have agents now?
Agents are
now, because we are thinking, you should think about this next year.
Yes. The importance of having agents now is to prepare, to budget, and to train them. As an agent, I was an agent of a presidential candidate last year. As an agent, we were trained. There is an entire process of training. There is an entire process of loyalty. There is an entire process of watching what will happen. So those processes, they require a lot of time for training and for people to commit. So if you just come next year towards election, you handpick people, you will not have enough time to train. You will not have enough time for them to negotiate their payment. You will not have enough time for those who are working even to prepare or to have permission from their job places. So that is what normally happens. But if you handpick the agents, they will do a shoddy job. And that is why ODM is in the media saying, oh, Junet did not pay agent, Junet saying so-and-so did not pay agent, because of last minute preparations. So to prepare for election, presidential election, remember you have over 47,000 polling center. The earlier, the better. And for this, I think UDA is taking the lead, followed by ODM, and United Opposition are dragging as per today.
I'm usually told, don't worry about the candidate. I've been told that a lot. Don't worry about the candidate in the loyal opposition. We will get that candidate for you. Don't worry about if it's Kalonzo or Gachagua or what. How important is it to know who's the president, who's the deputy now?
That is a very good question. When you are preparing for the politics and you have your candidate in mind, candidates have personality. And some of the candidates are likable, and some of the candidates they are appealing to the people. Some candidates are not appealing. Some candidates are not likable. So you need to persuade people to like your candidate. So if you have your presidential candidate now, it is easier to start aligning your campaign policies, your campaign strategies, and your campaign persuasion language, your setting of the agenda as per that candidates. But if you now have like 4 candidates, for example, like United Opposition, we have Rigathi has got a different personality from Kalonzo Musyoka,
for sure,
from Natembeya, or from whoever who will be the United Opposition candidate. So the earlier, the better. So on this other side of UDA, we are sure of our presidential candidate, which is the President William Ruto. We know William Ruto is a guy who is in the fundi wa mjengo. Anajenga barabara, anajenga manyumba, anajenga stadium. So as the people in UDA will be able to align their thoughts or manifesto towards their candidate. In United Opposition, there is nothing definite defining a candidate. Because if we talk of Rigathi, I think it is either the media or the people who are packaging him, they have packaged him as a tribalist. So if it will be Rigathi who will be their presidential candidate, they need to undo that. If it is Kalonzo, we don't know exactly how they want to package him. The same things happened to Natembeya of Tawe movement. So by the time opposition will be coming up with their candidates, it will be extremely too late to align that candidate and to package. So in terms of presidential candidate, UDA is ahead. They have William Ruto.
Yeah.
So we know William Ruto. So you can criticize the president, you can do anything, we criticize the president, talk about the president, because he's the guy. And now the presidential team for William Ruto need to know how to balance that and to react on that. But in united opposition, whom will you defend? If they're talking of Rigathi, today you defend Rigathi as your presidential candidate. Tomorrow you defend Kalonzo as your presidential candidate. The other day, the Thai movement defend Natembeya as their presidential candidate. So when you have this presidential candidate coming into very late, you are at a loss. Then finally, when the united opposition, they will pick one of those candidates, there will be fallout. Some people, Kalonzo followers, will be very disappointed if it is not Kalonzo. Same thing to Rigathi, watu wa Mrima. Same thing to Natembeya, Team Western.
Yeah.
So they need to have time to unite that fallout. If you don't have that time, those fallout will result in what we call in politics protest vote. You did not pick my candidate, then they protest. So, and that is how the opposition is likely to lose. In the past, during 2002, the presidential candidate was named 2 months to. The opposition came up with Raila, the late Raila declared Kibaki Tosha 2 months to election, because that was a wave, that was a momentum.
Yes.
That the time was
because
right.
that would have been the argument that Raila was.
Raila, yes. So if you use that argument, in 2002, it was Kenya against KANU. And everybody who just wanted KANU out. If Raila could have said Nyachai Tosha, Nyachai could have been the president. If Raila could have said Wamalwa Tosha, Wamalwa could have been the president. If Raila could have said Martha Karua Tosha, she could have been the president of Kenya. So the scenario for 2002 has changed.
But don't you think everyone wants Ruto out now?
Some say yes, some say no. Those, according to the statistics, so far because the only valid statistic is 2022 result, where we can base whether people want Ruto now or not. There is no any other scientific statistic apart from 2022 presidential result. So as per latest statistic, whether people want Ruto, yes, they still want Ruto. But if we have them seeing polling, the polling centers, Mizani, they have been doing analysis research, you find out that William Ruto is still leading, even on Mizani, others on these private polling centers. So if we base on that, William Ruto is ahead of them.
Talk to me about the nomination process. I've seen a lot of fallout in DCP.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen it.
I've seen
even Mushomba, people thought is going to go to that side, but I saw her on Ruto's side, UDA saying, I don't know, 4 term for her, 2 term for Ruto or something. How crucial is it to deal with the people that are going to take that ticket of your party? And how would you assess both opposition, say DCP, Wiper, and UDA in terms of managing the nomination? There's a lot of conversation in DCP, and I want you to talk about that.
Thank you very much. Nomination process now to deals with directly with the politician, the aspirants. And remember, the people of the highest libido or ambitions are the politicians. You mess with them, they react immediately. So when we come to nomination process, ODM, if I use ODM, starting 2002, the number of ODM MPs has been going down, simply because the nomination process in ODM was not fair. They could say Baba will come and say Chapia Chapia Tosha or Jadiel Tosha or Njau Tosha. So those processes, funny processes, they need people to lose the interest. And now when we come now to the nomination process of DCP, what is happening now, most people are saying DCP, that the DCP party leader is soliciting funds, is asking the aspirant to get funds. If you want a nomination, you need to do something, get me some funds. And Mheshimiwa Rigathi has disputed that completely. So, but that is just sideshows. The proper nomination must be put in the Political Parties Act. We have them in the Political Parties Act, and we have in the Individual Parties Act. So for now, if I compare nomination processes from the previously what happened maybe in Malava, nominations in Malava, in Mbeere where Wamudende and Fireman was doing the nomination, I compared the nomination process, particularly the nomination process that was taking place in Malava. I was there personally in Malava. For the UDA party, they have electronic system of nomination. They have electronic data. They have the number of their processes of nomination is electronically, so you can trace. So in Malava constituency, they started voting from 6. In all polling centers, they had the gadgets. So they started voting from 6. By 6 in the evening, immediately when the polling center was closed, the UDA winners were announced after 2 minutes. Because it is electronic system. It is a system that the nomination process electronically. And you can audit that system to see that in this polling center, Panyako got these votes. In this polling center, Injendi Rayan got these votes. So in terms of nomination, transparency, and to monitor the system, I give it to UDA. Because the system is already electronic nomination system. And if I compare with the DCP, DCP or DAP Kenya or Wiper Patriotic Party, their nomination system is still manual, which means it will not be fair. For the aspirants in the united opposition, they can manipulate their manipulation, the old style ODM used to do it. But the aspirants who will be in UDA or in Kenya Kwanza, they will not be able to manipulate that system. Because as you vote, the adding up buttons, it adds up the number. For example, I was in Malava when UDA was doing nomination. At Malava High School, it was a polling center. At Malava High School, when we were doing a nomination for UDA aspirant, when you press the name on the pad, maybe you are voting for the Ryan Injendi, or you press the name that you are voting for Indakwa. Immediately, the submission of the totals is being done. So by the time we are finishing at 6, we know the winner in next 1 minute. So we avoid rigging and confusions. So in that process, united opposition, they have not even started. They are purely on manual voting system.
So we're going to see a lot of fallout if they don't switch.
There will be a lot of fallout in the united opposition, and people will protest. And remember, all politicians have followers. So, for example, in united opposition, let's pick a constituency like Westlands. They will have around 4 candidates. If one of the candidates feels that the process was tampered with because it is manual, that candidate will protest. And they will protest maybe by going to run as independent candidates, or will have a voter apathy. The followers of that candidate will not fall. Or the others, they will protest by having a protest vote to condemn what happened. So in that case, that is how united opposition will lose, because they have not synchronized and make their nomination process electronically so that you can monitor in each polling center. Same things happen to when you are looking for aspirants. When now aspirants are registering, in UDA, because they have also the aspirant forum system, their system, when you register, I can register as an aspirant of my home village. I come from Kakamega Huisero constituency. I vote, my ward is Kisa West. In Nairobi, I can register as a candidate for Kisa West in Nairobi, which is in Huisero. At the same time, I can register as a candidate for Nairobi when I'm in United States abroad. So that is how the electronic system is being done. So what UDA are doing, they are moving from manual. There will be no manual operation in UDA. They are just turning to electronics. So that is advantage. So I want to urge our brothers in opposition. It is late to implement some of those functions, but you can still do something. So think in those lines.
What is Ruto doing now, the president, when it comes to this UDA? I'm seeing a lot of aspirant meetings in State House.
Yes.
In State House, I think I saw one in Nyeri, I believe, or something of that sort, where aspirants are being brought. I heard him even say that, you know, if you do not participate in the election of the party or in the processes of the party, you might not get even a ticket. But that counters what you talked about electronic in a way. Do you think Ruto controls the ticket when he says you might not get if you do not participate? But also talk to me about what he's doing when he's calling aspirants in State House.
No, what is happening in UDA when the president is calling aspirant, President William Ruto has got no access right to the electronic voting system in the UDA. The SG of UDA, Hassan, has got no access right to that system. So when Ruto is calling the aspirant, he's inspiring aspirant to go. So he will not interfere because this is a system. And when you interfere to this electronic system, we will know this is this person, open it this time, he has logged in at this particular time. So the President William Ruto has got no access to UDA aspirant electronic system or voting system. Nobody has it. The only person who has the right, they already have the National Election Board. So there are few people in that National Election Board who have the back end.
But why was he saying that he will not allow if you're not participating?
What Ruto was talking about, Ruto is instilling party discipline. For example, if you are a followers of UDA, then you must have the ideologies of UDA. And if ideology of UDA is what you believe in, then you must participate using your personal funds to make sure those ideologies of UDA are done. So Ruto was also instilling the party members to become the funders, because the money that is funded from the political party to political parties is not enough. So what Ruto meant is that for you to participate in UDA or in Kenya Kwanza, you must grow with it. You don't sit somewhere, you will come the last minute when somebody has been building the party. William Ruto believes in building UDA party together from the scratch. He does his part as the party leader, Kindiki does his part as deputy, and the aspirants, you do your part. Members of UDA, you do your part. So if you compare in terms of preparation of aspirants, it is only UDA, I think so far I've seen in the mainstream media, they have advertised how the aspirants are coming to register and to record. And even the aspirant who have now joined the UDA Aspirant Forum will be meeting President this Monday, the 4th of February. They will be in State House to discuss, the President wants to share with them your role as an aspirant. So if I also compare, I don't know, people might think, wow, what is happening today? All the united opposition are behind. If I compare this, in the united opposition, people are still fighting. There is no, they have, I said, they of course they are talking.
But I saw a DCP retreat last week in Mombasa.
There was a DCP retreat. How many people attended that retreat? How many people didn't fail to attend that retreat? The retreat is okay, because you cannot bring all aspirants to the retreat. But we want to audit the aspirant system. For example, I don't want to mention DCP. Let's say one of the political parties from the united opposition. If today they say they open their forum for aspirants to register, by end of the day we will not know how many aspirants have registered for Senate position or MP position. But if you go to the back end of the UDA system in terms of aspirant, as per now, you are able to know in Nairobi, particularly Dagoretti North constituency, 10 people have registered for this particular position. We have the record, we have the fact, and we have their database. So if you look at this other side, the united opposition, they have got no database, and politics is built on database.
How about the Orange Democratic Movement?
Orange Democratic Movement, they started with a good note. When it was being formed in 2005 after the referendum, they had those structures up to mashinani. But now those structures has been becoming weak, because they were not able to integrate those structures into electronic system. ODM have the system, but they have a manual system. And that system was in the head of Mzee Raila Amolo Odinga. May he rest in peace. Yes. So Raila could have called anybody, even a Shosho in Huisero, a Shosho in Madare, Aguka in Embu, all over, directly. So ODM has a manual database system. Now, that is disadvantaged, because those are now held by maybe the SG of the party. But now if you come now to united opposition, that database, it is in the system. Anybody who has access right can access it. So that is how ODM has been losing. So at the moment, if I take ODM by what happened in 2022, ODM did not have agents in the entire 90% of polling centers in Murima. ODM did not have agents. Here in Nairobi, I was a presidential chief agent here in Nairobi. In some of the areas I was, ODM had no agents because they don't have database. They have a manual system. So to reach their clientele, it was very difficult. And for now, being fair, it is only UDA who has that clientele or the supporters database.
There's a lot of work to be done.
For opposition, united opposition, in fact, they have not started. They're still making noise. How I wish they sit down and understand that election is not a voting day event. Voting day is the last 3 steps of election. 95% of elections are won not on the voting day.
What is the area of focus when you look at the campaigns now, both sides? I know there's a conversation that UDA is really focusing on the election now that they have the presidential aspirant, they have the deputy, maybe it'll be Kindiki once again. But the united opposition is focusing a little bit more on who's going to be the presidential aspirant, how are they going to build the coalition. If you look at it, how would you assess where both teams are in terms of focus as we are heading to the election of 2027?
I am struggling to be neutral, but I can't be neutral. If I focus on these political parties, UDA is now focused towards the 2027 election, and they have already started the process. And one of the processes is now this electronic voting system, aspirant forum, setting the agendas and all that. But now if I come to our brothers in the united opposition, our brothers and sisters in ODM, at the moment, they are focused on who? There is a splinter group, one led by youth leader Mzee Mheshimiwa Oburu, another splinter group led by Winnie, young, vibrant, eloquent, another splinter group led by my brothers, that is Sifuna, Osoti, and all those. So at the moment, ODM is not focused on the election. ODM is focused on cleaning their house. They are calling for NDC, they are calling for what? So we are also expecting repercussion of NDC. ODM will call for NDC, but after NDC, the losing camp will still create problems. So at the moment, ODM is not focused on 2027 election. It is still focused on NDC and the splinter group. If we come to the party of Eugene Wamalwa and Natembeya, they are focused on the leadership wrangle between Eugene Wamalwa and Natembeya, who is the party leader. The party leader. And to make the situation worse, they want to make DAP Kenya National Party. Yet all of them, Eugene, the party leader, the deputy party leader Natembeya, they all come from the same village, from the same county. So it becomes very difficult. If you come to DCP, DCP is now focused only in Murima. And they are infighting. They are focused on who is betraying.
You're being unfair. He's focusing also on Northeastern. He's focusing on national politics.
I cannot. Let me tell you the fact. DCP, the party leader of DCP, he only talked about Northeastern last week when the candidates, when he was talking about the governors of Northeastern building some flats along Mombasa Road. But actually, if you go on the ground, Mheshimiwa Rigiji is focusing on the Murima region to strengthen his party. Then after strengthening his party, he's also focusing on the betrayers in the party. They believe Moshomba has betrayed the party, Koimburi of Juja has betrayed the party. So they're focusing on mistrust. They don't have a united house. And when you come to Wiper is struggling. Mheshimiwa Kalonzo is struggling, is focusing to be the candidates of united opposition. He is not focusing to become the president of the Republic of Kenya. So those are some of the things. So again, I don't know. Again, I give it to UDA, because UDA now, they already have the presidential candidate and they are focusing on the D-Day, and they have started the processes. Opposition, they are still focusing on their cocoons. ODM, NDC, splinter group, betrayers. Raila said what? Even when the people Raila never talked to. So those are some of the issues. Like yesterday, Win Odinga, when she was being interviewed, You're saying some people claim to have talked with Raila. Others claim when Raila was passing away, they were there. And it is true they were not there. So they're focused on lies. What Raila says, they're not focused on the goal.
Where should their focus be? If you're asked, please tell me. You're saying a lot, but we're trying to build something.
Yes.
Where should our focus be? Because before we build anything, we're looking for the material.
Yes.
We're looking to build sand. We're looking for cement. This is what they're doing. What should be the focus?
The opposition, for UDA, they are focused because they already have the presidential candidate. They have the aspirant forum. They have set the electronic system. For opposition to come closer to UDA or to prepare to compete with William Ruto, they should now focus on who is their presidential candidate. We need to know so that they start organizing their thoughts or ideologies and their manifesto towards that presidential candidate. But then that is number one. Number two, they should be focused on even on the zoning process. How will they do their nomination? How will they organize their aspirant forums? How will they raise money to run their processes? Because remember, DCP was formed the other day, so DCP does not benefit from the political parties fund. So they should be concentrating on raising funds. But when we come to raising funds, you hear some of the MPs that are complaining that the party leaders of DCP is ambushing them to give him millions and all those sorts. So they need to focus on the process. They should not focus. DCP should stop focusing in Mrima and focus on Kenya. Kalonzo should not stop focusing on being united presidential candidate and focus on becoming the president of the Republic of Kenya.
But the assumption is, if they have the Gen Z votes,
yes,
whenever they just come up with a presidential aspirant, people will go towards that side. That is the assumption, that Kenyans are going through challenges. Once they come up with a name, it will just be automatic.
In science, in political science, politics is divided into three things. Part one of politics, where the opposition is failing, is political scientific facts. The political scientific fact, simple. We go to the registration. There is ongoing registration of voter registration. The Gen Z, if we go now to the registered voters, the Gen Z have not registered. And in politics, it is a game of numbers. So the opposition are banking on numbers that are not existing. The people of your generation have not registered up to today. And this is scientific fact. So the united opposition, they are basking in their own mind. The Gens will come the way they came to do their demos in 2024. We'll have 10,000 of them. Forget. The Gen Z it's a generation online. It's an internet generation. So what united opposition could have fighting now for registration of election to go online, not to remain physical, because there is no Gen Z who has time to go to a polling center to register. That is the area they should focus. But they are focusing on numbers that don't exist. So that is the political scientific fact the united opposition are missing. But if you now come now to the other side of UDA, they have that numbers. And by the way, at the registration that is going on now, the strongholds of UDA, that is Rift Valley Western, and the stronghold of ODM, Mombasa and Nyanza, they are leading in registration. So when we'll come to the scientific fact, game of numbers, opposition will lose. So let opposition focus on how Gen Z will register by coming up with a law to force the IBC to move this registration from manual to electronic so that they can do registration. Instead, the opposition are focusing on political theater, political drama, political propaganda, where now they go somewhere, they dance, they do whatever they want to do. But now, UDA is ahead of them because now it is focusing on the political numbers. And politics is numbers. Even if you dance on a podium the whole day, ukisema 2-term or 1-term, and you don't have the scientific facts in politics, nil, zero, wataenda home.
Talk to me about the coalition, because now you're hitting us with a lot of facts. But the coalition of the united opposition.
Yes.
how would you assess how far they have gone since Rigathi Gachagua was impeached last year but one? How would you assess how far they have gone? And also in the UDA side, I know there's this conversation about ANC that was determined illegal by our courts. Yes. UDA is still trying to absorb parties that were in Kenya Kwanza. How would you assess the process of coalition building and even zoning when you look at the by-election that was there before?
Very good. When I look at if I compare both sides in the processes of coalition formation, the united opposition, they are struggling. In fact, with their individual parties. So they are one step behind because they are still struggling at the individual parties level. that is DAP Kenya is still struggling in their leadership wrangles. Okay. DCP, the image that has been branded a tribal party. Kalonzo is still struggling. So what I will do in my assessment, the united opposition political parties, they need to clean the individual parties and now start focusing on the policies that will unite all those parties. Because at the moment they have a committee. One of the committees is run by my brother Mukisa Kitua. There is another committee run by also my brother Kisia. There is another committee run by what? So the united opposition, they are at the committee level. They have not even, the committees have not developed the policies for zoning them or for bringing them into one umbrella. So they need to activate their committees. Kisia should activate his committee, same thing to Mukisa Kitui. But if they remain at that committee level, the time will be caught up with them. On the other side, the UDA house is in order because they already have the policies. They have already introduced a structured. The UDA NEC was in State House the other day. So they allowed the party leader, who is President Ruto, to negotiate with ODM. ODM, they're also going to a step ahead. Now they're also in the process of going to NDC to come up with the negotiation structure. So if we look at the processes of uniting the united opposition, they're already at the committee level. UDA and ODM, they are already at the position of coming up with the structures. So they are still ahead. They are still ahead. So the united opposition, please, my brother Kisia, my brother Mukisa Kitua, move away from the committee's action. Unite these things so that you catch up with ODM and UDA. Because if you delay that, we'll have a voter apathy. The opposition might be caught when we are doing nominations. If we don't have nomination policies to control the united opposition, each party will feed their candidates and that they will hang themselves to the nearest hell.
I don't feel like winding the conversation without talking about ideologies. This is the reason why we actually started the platform, so that we can talk about what really matters, you know. What really want to hear is how their lives can become better. I've seen the Nyota program, I've seen the conversation about Singapore, I've seen a lot from William Ruto's side, and I've also seen more from Gachagua's side, which is a little bit about stop the wastage. Yes. And also saying the country will be better if only Ruto is out. That is somehow part of their agenda.
Yes.
How do you assess what we have seen so far as we're heading towards this 2026, which will be groundbreaking for the opposition?
Very good. When you come to political agenda, in politics, whoever sets the agenda has the upper hand because his agenda or her agenda will be on discussion. For example, when Rigathi left the government, when he was impeached, Rigathi set a very nice agenda of one term. So the agenda was one term. But Rigathi failed to translate that one-time agenda or that one-term slogan into measurable options. For strategy, they call it the SMART options. So it is one-term agenda that is not measurable. And the UDA, they managed to counter it with two-term. So one-term agenda and one-term slogan was cancelled. So that one is drawn. But now, the latest, if you check on our political media, the latest people who are setting the agenda, and the agenda that is mostly discussed, are agenda set by William Ruto and UDA. For example, at the moment, everybody is talking about Singapore. William Ruto is talking about how he wants to take Kenya to Singapore. Opposition, instead of coming up with the agenda of saying before we go to Singapore we do A, B, C, D, opposition, they are attacking and mutilating Singapore agenda. So 90% of opposition, they are reacting on that Singapore agenda, instead of 90% of their time setting up the alternative agenda to Singapore. So that is now how now the Singapore conversation, the government is winning. Then if we come to another issue also, the opposition are not attacking it very well when they come to setting agenda. It is the privatization agenda. Privatization is an act, and it is an open act. And any Kenyan can access the Privatization Act. Privatization Act, the basic concept of Privatization Act is not selling any company or any public company to any foreign company. It is just changing the management. For example, at the latest one is how now the government want to privatize KPLC. So the government, now the opposition are not coming out very clean by telling the people how that KPLC is going to be privatized. Instead, they have come up with a propaganda. Okay, KPLC is being sold, the government is selling private organization and all that. But these things are on internet.
Don't you think it is resonating well with Kenyans when they hear, government inauza? Don't you think Kenyans, when they hear that from the opposition, it drives Kenyans towards that side, even if it's what you call propaganda?
Kenya is an intelligent voting society. And 90% of Kenyans, if you check on the internet penetration in Kenya, 87% of Kenyans have access to internet. So if you come up with a lie that it can be verified and confirmed in internet, then that propaganda will not work. Because the actual sense, privatization is not selling. There is no property that the Kenyan government has sold to any private entity. There is only privatization. And if you read Privatization Act, it is very clear. It is just that the government, the management of that organization is now moving out of the government to a private person or for a private company with the aim of making profit. And then when that profit is made, it is shared back to the government. I want to argue to this way. When the government is planning to privatize KPLC or Kenya Power, we find out that the profit we were making as the government were making is around 40%. But now when it is privatized and run by independent company, the profit of the government will go higher, will move from 40 to 45%. And we are in business to run this country.
For Safaricom, government is selling its shares.
Yes, for example, if we come for Safaricom, where the government is selling its shares, it is very clear. It is just the people are misusing the fact. The fact remained, the government have shares in Safaricom. And now they are selling its shares to move to the next level. The government is growing. We have our dormant money lying in Safaricom shares. The government needs that money so that there is a bill that was passed, the Infrastructure Fund Act. The Infrastructure Fund Act, it is the fund that where the government is now consolidating these monies we are selling so that we move this country from where we are to the next level. It is like, let me simplify it to the viewers. It is like when you have 10 million in your account, and here there is a person, the entrepreneur telling you, the 10 million you have in your account, give me those 10 million, I give you 15 million. When I give you this 15 million, I will invest this 15 million into the economy, which means instead of your account remaining dormant at the level of 10 million, now your account will grow and you will turn your money into development. That is exactly, in simple terms, what the government is doing. Our money was lying idle in shares of Safaricom, which is growing gradually. But now when this money are put in the infrastructure fund and we develop an airport, we develop a new international airport using this money, we develop roads using this money, the money and the profit we are going to get from the roads or the airport is much more and bigger than our money being dormant in shares. That is how I can explain it in simple terms.
The explanation makes sense, but then there's the argument of the shares being sold at a lower price price according to Ndindi. I don't know, you're thinking about that shortly before we return to agenda.
What is happening? The shares, when you are in a share market, the share market is floated to the audience or to the buyers. And then you can open the selling of the shares or you can close. There is what we call Public Privatization Act. You can close those shares. If you open to the market, they will be forth, pull and back. So it will take longer time. If you go with the principle or the ideologies of Ndindi is talking of selling those shares publicly, that and Ndindi is just approximating that we will get a buyers who will be higher than these shares. And for this case, the government has already have the buyer who is part of the process. We can get a buyer maybe who is higher than the selling price, but the buyer will want to sack all the Kenyans who are working in Safaricom. So it is structured. It is government selling to public, that under the PP, public-private partnership, to this particular buyer who is at the Vodafone, under the same agreement that the Kenyan who are employed in Safaricom will remain in Safaricom. But if you sell those shares to the highest bidder, like the billionaires in the world, they will tell you from today, all the employees of Safaricom will go home. They will tell you from today, all the profit of Safaricom will spend outside Kenya. Are we ready for that? So that is where now it is coming. So the government have to negotiate the best negotiation. It is better to retain Kenyans who are employed in Safaricom than selling those shares to Elon Musk, who will bring in new employees and sack all the Kenyans. The government will go at a loss because we get taxes from those particular shares.
Come back to setting the agenda. I think that was a very important conversation to talk about shares. But you're saying UDA is setting the agenda, basically.
Yes. What is happening for now, the politics of the day, all what is being discussed is the agenda that are set by the UDA. And in politics, if you go ahead to set agenda for your opponent to discuss about that agenda, you are distorting the opponent. Instead of the opponent concentrating on making his agenda or selling his ideology, they are concentrating in publicity. And in politics, negative publicity or positive publicity, it is the same. So long as they're talking about Singapore, whether it is negative or positive, that is the UDA agenda. So long as they're talking about Nyota program, that is the UDA agenda. So long as they're talking about affordable housing, that is the UDA agenda. So they are enlightening people. So long as they're talking about SHA, that is the UDA agenda. So the opposition don't have, so far the opposition have not set the agenda. The only agenda that opposition set, and it was neutralized, was the one-term agenda. So far, in my assessment, the opposition have not set agenda. They are reacting to agenda set by William Ruto.
Finally, we talked about voter registration for Gen Zs, but will UDA have votes enough come 2027 if you look at the base they have now?
Very good. If you compare the base the UDAs have now for voter registration, on the issue of Gen Zs, it is affecting both sides. Because Gen Zs have not registered, most of them, because it is an internet generation. So it is now the opposition and the UDA government to ensure that they translate this voter registration from manual to online. They come up with a system where agencies can register online in the safety of their bedrooms or their houses, they register. So that issue of Gen Z registering, it will affect both opposition and the government. But the greatest loser will be the opposition, because most of the Gen Zs, after their demos, they have not reconciled themselves with the current system. So if I was advising United Opposition, I could have pushed that in Parliament or even come up with a law to ensure that the IBC registration goes online for Gen Z to register. But if I am on the government side, I relax and watch, so that these people, if they are banking on the numbers that are not existing in the register, they are banking on the numbers that were existing on demonstration. And in the voting booth, there is nothing like how many people demonstrated. There is who are you voting to? Are you in the register? So the Gen Z demonstrators are not in the register. So those who are advising the government, relax, keep cool. But if I was in opposition, I push for those numbers.
Thanks for tuning into this conversation. It's Chapia Chapia. It's always a pleasure to have him because he tells us the truth as he sees it. You're giving government on a scale of 1 to 10. How are they performing when it comes to campaign?
In terms of campaigning, I'm giving government 7, United Opposition 3.
3 is a very harsh number.
No, 3 is good for them because they are still they are still fighting in their in-house. They have not focused.
Although I sometimes don't agree with Chapia Chapia, I believe it was high time the opposition was told that they need to pull up their socks. Thanks for tuning into this conversation. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Chapia, can we have this conversation again?
Yes, I'm ready and available and willing.
Willing, available and ready.
Yes.
Goodbye for now. Share this video with as many people as possible. We need to reach 10K by the end of March. Goodbye for now.